So culture is something we talk about all the time, and how we can have healthy and cultures and how we can transform our cultures. But culture actually has another reason to be talked about, which is that it's often the silent killer of productivity, which is something that we never really talk very much about. And today's Director's View is all about, understanding why culture is the silent killer of productivity, but more importantly, how can you do it? And these Director's View episodes are for directors and often from directors to answer some real-life questions that you can use day to day in your leadership challenges. And I wanted to share with you today a story from a conversation I had just this week with the CEO who had been on a great journey of building a business that he exited during COVID. But something he didn't see coming was a real collapse in the productivity of his team. This is pre-COVID, so not as a consequence of COVID. But the reason for that was something he didn't expect, and I think he started to see what he described as quite toxic culture building as his team grew. And he talked very eloquently about, when there was just a few of them in the early days, it was easy. Everyone was with each other every day, and culture wasn't a challenge. But as they grew in numbers, it became harder for him as the leader to be able to touch everyone, make sure that everyone was, in line with their values and their core beliefs. And he talked about what he did, which really resonated with me, because what he'd come across was when you have people that either don't fit with your culture or actually feel they're in a toxic environment, they very, very quickly get demotivated. And that's why it is, for me, is a bit of a silent killer of productivity. Demotivated people are not going to be working at highly productive levels. Either they're going to switch off, they're going to do the bare minimum, they're certainly not going to go the extra mile. And I thought I'd share with you what he did in terms of how he uncovered that, and because the message from me in terms of how do you deal with that really is a very simple answer, which is you need to understand what your culture is right here, right now. I say we talk a lot about what we want cultures to be and how we get there, but we don't often talk about where we're starting from. And he landed on that very, very quickly. Now, it's an easy answer, but doing it is not so straightforward. So what you need to do is you need to find safe ways for people to express how they really feel about the business, about the behaviours of the people around them, about how they feel leadership treat them, about whether they feel safe, whether they feel motivated to be there. I mean, all sorts of really difficult questions. I think it's really important as leaders we don't expect that people are going to volunteer that information in an open forum or even in a one-to-one conversation. So you've got to really find ways to maybe bring outside people in where people can have those confidential conversations, or they can submit that information in a way that it isn't tied back to them. But as this leader spoke to me about today, once he got that information from his people, he was horrified. I think that was the response he gave me, which I thought was really interesting. But what it meant was he could be really honest with himself and ultimately with his team about where they were at, and then start to address the journey then of what did the culture need to be and how are we going to get there, which is ultimately the journey he went on. But that being able to be really, really clear and honest about where they were starting from was the really key thing here for me. So I think that's really what I wanted to share with you today is really, understand that culture is really, really important element of productivity. You want motivated people, as well as, people that fit. This journey is probably about removing people that don't ultimately as well. And once you've understood it, then you can go on that journey of cultural transformation.